So today we're going to be doing SIG number 5, which is indefinite integration. So we're going to start off with our first problem, which is the indefinite integral of 3 times x to the negative 1 times dx. So what we're going to start off by doing is we are going to take out the constant, which in this case is 3. And this is our new equation, 3 times the indefinite integral of x to the negative 1 times dx. And we have a negative exponent, which means that we have to reciprocate it and make it positive, which makes it positive, which in this case will turn it into 1 over x times dx. So now with this equation, we can see that it's basically dx over x, which if we want to rewrite it with new variables is u prime over u, which we know so far that is natural log. So our final answer for this would be 3 times the natural log of the absolute value of x. Remember, we have to have our absolute value because we need it to be positive in order to take the natural log, plus c. And the reason we have c is because since we have no numbers at the top or the bottom of the integral, it's indefinite, so that's why we need a constant, so it's just basically a placeholder. So next we have for the indefinite integral of 4 times e to the x times dx. This one's self-explanatory, so it's basically itself. The answer is itself. The reason being is when we go, well, plus c. The reason being is because when we go back to trying to take the derivative, and we use product rule, and we know that whenever you're taking the derivative of a constant, it is automatically 0. So that whole first chunk is 0 with obviously the addition of e to the x times 4, which kind of just gives you your final answer, which is 4 times e to the x. So our next problem is going to be the indefinite integral of 20 times the cubed root, of x over 3 times dx. So here we're going to go back to what we did with number 1 and take out our constant, which is 20 over 3. So we can rewrite that, and this is going to be our next step. And so to make it a little cleaner, we are going to take out the cubed root and make the x when it's going to be x to the 1/3 power, which is the equivalent of the cubed root of x. So our next step is we're going to take the antiderivative, which we know is you have to add 1 to the top, and then we're going to, when it comes to fractions, we have to multiply by the reciprocal. So in this case, the reciprocal of 4/3 is 3x to the 4/3 power over 4 plus c. And now our next step is we have to multiply straight across, which will then in turn give us 60x to the 4/3 power all over 12. And if we simplify that even further, that will be 5. 60 divided by 12, is 5. So the final answer is 5 times x to the 4/3 power plus c. So our next equation is 4 times the indefinite integral of 4 times cosine x times dx. And so at this point in calculus, we should know that our trig identities, and we know that the derivative of sine is cosine. So it's obvious, it's one of those easy ones where just going the opposite way, we know that the indefinite integral of cosine is sine, and we always need that plus c there. So for our final two equations, these are other two that are self-explanatory. So our question number 5 is the indefinite integral of cosecant squared x times dx. So we know, don't be alarmed if there's a squared, we have to go back to our trig identities. And so going backwards, cosecant squared x is just the opposite of negative cotangent x. We have to, please remember that we have to have our negative there, that can sort of change the equation sometimes. So that is our and plus c. Remember, we need that plus c there, and that is our final answer for that. So our final one is the indefinite integral of -3 times secant x tangent x times dx. So where our first step is obviously we're going to take out the constant, which is -3, and we will rewrite our equation that way. And this is another one where we have to know our trig identities in order to solve it. So we know that secant x, when taking the derivative, is secant x tangent x. So that automatically is our final answer. So So when we multiply it times -3, our final answer is -3 secant x plus c. And remember, we always have to keep our c's when they're indefinite because we don't really get to know our numbers, like between what two numbers we have to know. Thank you.